ISB Parent Workshop, Assessment in the PYP. My name is Amanda McCloskey and I'm presenting this workshop today together with Michelle Rowland, our PYP coordinator. So I'll be giving you an overview of the role that assessment plays in the PYP. So an important starting point is considering why do we assess student learning. So the purpose of assessment is to inform learning and teaching. Assessment is an ongoing process of gathering, analysing, reflecting and acting on evidence of student learning to inform teaching. So why do we have a parent workshop and assessment? We've decided to have this workshop for you so that you can become better informed about what we assess and how we assess, but also to raise your awareness about how you can support your child's learning. The slides today are taking information from the primary years programme documentation, which is based on an assessment strategy called Understanding by Design, also known as Backwards by Design, where the end goal and aim is known and teachers design tasks to help students to continue on their learning journey to that point. The PYP also considers Forward by Design, which includes learning that may occur during this process that was perhaps not originally planned for, which may be to do with social or self-management skills or digital skills or transdisciplinary approaches to learning such as research skills or communication skills. The PYP framework is based on conceptual understandings that surround around 6 transdisciplinary themes, and these are then identified into 6 curriculum areas. These 6 subjects are all assessed in subject-specific knowledge and skills as well as conceptual understandings. You can see they are language, social studies, mathematics, the arts, science, and PSPE, which is a combination of personal and social education as well as PE. These conceptual understandings are assessed in these subjects and not just knowledge and skills, to provide a deeper, more meaningful understanding for students. This assessment of conceptual understanding enables students to develop a much deeper, broader understanding of these subject areas, as well as their learning in general, so that they're not just memorising isolated facts or knowledge out of context and purely for the purpose of memorising it, but they are using all the knowledge and skills that they acquire to develop enduring understandings. PYP teachers consider the learner, learning and teaching, as well as the learning community in their assessment. The learner is involved in assessment so that they are aware of their learning, their progress, any goal setting, and how they can move their learning forward. It helps them as well to celebrate achievements that they make on the way. Learners are informed and learners are aware of how they can move forward. Teachers design a range of assessment tools and use different strategies to monitor, document and measure learning. As we spoke about before, assessment helps to inform the learning and teaching. The learning community involves students, parents and teachers in understanding where a student is at and how they can move forward. Effective assessment supports effective learning. Assessment should be authentic, wherever possible to connect to real-world experiences. It should promote student engagement, be clear and specific, varied and developmental, and consider where the student is currently at now and how to move them forward. Assessment can be collaborative and should be interactive. There should be a dialogue about learning. Feedback to feed forward is used in PYP schools to help inform future learning. The PYP recognises these 4 dimensions of assessment: monitoring, documenting, measuring, and reporting on learning. Monitoring learning, as you can see, is the most frequent type of assessment. This occurs in classrooms when teachers are observing, questioning, reflecting, discussing, prompting students, Open-ended tasks may be set, written assessments, portfolios, and oral assessments. Documenting learning involves actual collecting of specific evidence. This may be teachers keeping a journal, note-taking, narratives, specific portfolio posts, rubrics, checklists of skills, and teacher record keeping. Measuring learning captures learning at a particular point in time and usually very specific skills or knowledge. School-designed assessments may be summative assessment tasks, which means they come at the end of a unit. For example, the end of a maths number unit may involve a number test. External assessments also measure learning. These are usually paid external assessments from companies such as MAP or NFER or ASA, and they measure learning. These external assessments can provide specific data for schools to support a larger picture of student achievement and progress in learning. Standardized tests can also help schools track learning and to look at trends through learning in their schools and to measure students against external benchmarks. But it is important to remember that this is just one snapshot of learning. Reporting on learning, as you can see, is the least frequent type of assessment, but the most public part of assessment. Reports inform the learning community about a student's learning journey, maybe set some goals for the future, and reports on where they actually are now. Reports describe the progress and achievement of a student. They are useful for parents, for teachers, and for students. And they also may include conferences at regular times. Some schools choose to have student-led conferences and parent-teacher student conferences to all complement the reporting process. All of these provide valuable information for the learning community. So meaningful assessment connects to student learning. It's important that prior knowledge assessment takes place so that teachers can understand what students can already do and what students already know. Assessment should be personalised for students to help them move their learning forward. In the PYP, we talk about assessment for and as learning, which are formative types of assessment. Assessment for learning is for teachers to design assessment that helps students move their learning forward. When students are involved and active in the assessment as well, it's assessment as learning. The learning tasks are actually part of the assessment. This can help to motivate students and help them set goals and helps them understand how to move their learning forward. Assessment of learning is summative and shows teachers what students have learnt and know in a particular point in time. So the purpose of assessment is to inform teaching and learning. I will now hand over to Michelle Rowland.
Was school stressful? Were there lots of tests for you at school? Today we're here to tell you what assessment looks like at ISB in the PYP program. Assessment takes on a huge variety of forms. In this half of the workshop, we'll be looking at what assessment looks like today in a PYP school. Firstly, let me tell you that we have an ISB assessment policy. This is a school-wide document that goes through the rationale for assessment and the assessment practices in the PYP, MYP, and DP. This document is available to parents if you're interested in reading more. Before we start teaching, one of the most important things we can do is to assess our students' prior knowledge and understanding. With this information, we know where to take the next step in each child's learning journey. There's lots of different ways that teachers assess prior knowledge and understanding. Sometimes it might be in a written form. Sometimes it might be through discussion. Maybe it's a hands-on activity. But knowing where to start helps guide our teaching. And there's nothing more frustrating than sitting through lessons and teachers presenting things that are already known and understood. So this really helps us plan very dynamic lessons and very well-pitched lessons for our students. While the learning's taking place, our teachers at ISB are continually monitoring learning. And as Amanda said, this is called formative assessment. Every day, with every interaction, with every classroom learning experience, teachers are monitoring what the students are doing. And we do this by continually observing, watching. Are students struggling? Are students breezing through this too easily? What questions do they have? Sometimes we make up games. Sometimes there might be something called an exit ticket, which is a quick way to check understanding as someone's leaving the room. Maybe it's through mini whiteboard responses. We look at written work. Sometimes we talk to students to gain a one-to-one perspective of how they're finding their learning. But most important is that so much of our job is to monitor how students are going and make adjustments based on the feedback. So as the teaching progresses at ISB, teachers are continually teaching, monitoring, and assessing. And we're assessing a variety of things. One of the very important aspects of the PYP, and indeed all the IB programs, is the approaches to learning. Teachers are monitoring and assessing and teaching a whole range of skills: communication skills, research skills, thinking, self-management, and social skills. We're also teaching, monitoring, and assessing knowledge in each of the 6 subject areas. And as Amanda mentioned, we're also teaching, monitoring, and assessing for understanding, not just memorization. So this assessment that we're continually getting from our students helps inform us, and it helps inform both teachers and students. It helps teachers check if the learning's on track. Can students make connections? Can they apply what they've learned? And this helps us drive adjustments to our learning engagements. So we look for the formative feedback, the formative assessment, and then we can make adjustments. Do we need to move more quickly? Do we need to go back because there are some misconceptions? So this continual assessment helps us as teachers plan the next step in the learning. Students at ISB are also very involved in assessment. And I know, speaking from my own personal experience, this is something that I didn't have the opportunity to participate in whilst I was at school. So students help design criteria for assessments. And this really helps them think about, well, what are the components for a strong piece of work? So in the example below, you can see a grade 4 designed rubric about how to give a strong performance. And the students, along with the teacher, have worked together to articulate what it means to meet expectations, exceed expectations, and in some cases, working towards expectations in a range of areas. Students also self-assess. So reflection is a very important part of a PYP curriculum. Students look back at their work and assess themselves and see where their own strengths and weaknesses are and what do they need to work on. Peers also assess each other and give feedback and provide suggestions for further growth. And another important role for students is the setting of their own goals. And at ISB, we have a number of goal-setting meetings throughout the year, and students can really help articulate what it is that they want to work towards and then monitor that throughout the year. Teachers at ISB document learning, and there are a huge range of assessment tools, well beyond a test or an exam or a multi-choice. So the types of assessment tools might be a presentation, it might be a written piece of work, it could be a video presentation or a project, it might be something as simple as an interview, students giving a speech or a performance, or students reflecting upon a unit of work. Assessment tools are extremely varied, and teachers choose a tool that matches the aim of their assessment. Students at ISB also reflect, and here you can see an example of some sentence starters, and this is one that I've used with students in the past. And this helps students think back and to monitor their own learning journey. I really like the way I wish I had, I still need to work on. Questions like this help students to assess their own learning and plan goals for the future. ISB students also document their learning, and the way it's documented could be a piece of work, a presentation to the class, a video through an assembly or a performance, or even an explanation. Students might share that with their class. They might write it down, or they might video it and share it via Seesaw. And here you can see the ways that students might share. Twice a year, students in the PYP receive a written report. So ISB also reports on assessment. And as Amanda explained, reporting on assessment is a small component of what we do in a whole school year, but it's an important formal documentation of how students have progressed throughout the semester. We also employ a range of externally designed assessment tools. Now, these are used for a number of reasons. First reason is that it provides us with comparative data. We're a small school, and sometimes it's useful to compare how our students are performing to a wider sample of students from around the world. External assessment tools can also provide us with benchmarks. Again, it gives us a way of referencing our internal assessment to something produced on a larger scale. Externally designed assessment tools can also help us in our decision-making process at school, and we'll explain that a little bit further. One of the highly utilised external assessment systems is Fontes and Pinnell benchmark reading assessments. Students in the elementary school have their reading assessed using this system. Students read orally to the teacher and then are asked a number of questions to assess their comprehension. We're looking for the student's independent and instructional reading level. This helps guide us in reading instruction, and it helps guide us in determining a good fit book for students. That's utilised at ISB is the MAP growth assessment. MAP stands for Measures of Academic Progress, and each year students in grades 3 to 5 undertake both the reading and the mathematics assessment twice a year. Let's have a look at a video that explains a little bit more about the MAP growth assessment.
MAP growth measures what your child knows and is ready to learn. This assessment was created by NWEA, a not-for-profit organization. NWEA was founded in 1977 by educators and researchers with a mission of partnering to help all kids learn. More than 9 million students in the US and in 140 countries worldwide use MAP growth. Most schools give MAP growth tests in the fall, winter, and spring. The test is adaptive, which means that it adjusts to each student's responses. If a student gets a question right, it gets harder. If a student gets a question wrong, it gets easier. The test is not concerned with which grade a student is in. It will go as high or low as it needs to. This helps you see if your child is testing above, below, or right at their grade level. in all types of subjects, including math, reading, language usage, and science. Students receive an individual RIT score at the end of the test. MAP Growth measures student performance with our RIT scale, the most stable and mature scale in the industry. This scale measures and tracks performance across grade levels, so you will be able to see your child's growth from year to year and over multiple years.
Assessment that's utilized is phonological awareness assessment. Now, this assessment tests a child's ability with the fundamental building blocks for literacy. It tests a child's ability to recognize and manipulate the sounds within words. This assessment is undertaken beginning in kindergarten, and we monitor and check up till grade 2. Again, this helps guide our instruction and informs us about the skills that the children currently have and those that need further development. Sometimes older children might be assessed if this is warranted. Assessment that's utilised by teachers at ISB is a more traditional style of assessment that's often used in mathematics. And this is an example from our Bridges Mathematics program that shows you a unit pre-assessment to assess what students know before we begin the instruction, and a post-assessment which shows what students know in a summative or end-of-unit assessment. The next externally devised assessment that we use is LAS Links, and LAS stands for Language Assessment System. Now, this is an assessment utilised by our EAL, or English as an Additional Language department. And this assesses students' English language acquisition, and it shows student progress, and it helps determine the level of support that students may require to help them as they are acquiring English. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation today and you've learnt more about assessment in the PYP. Thank you for watching.